The Indian parliamentary system of electoral politics is starkly different from the US presidential election system. However, there is one similarity. Like in the 2019 elections, even in the US, the candidates seem to be on shaky ground, continually raises doubts over the validity of the process itself. Only in the case of the US, though, it happens to be the incumbent US President Donald Trump. Aiming to avoid becoming the first incumbent president to lose a re-election bid since fellow Republican George H.W. Bush in 1992, US President Donald Trump has repeatedly cast aspersions on the counting process. Trump has doubted the integrity of the US election process once again on Sunday, saying a vote count that stretched past election day would be a quote-unquote terrible thing. Listen into what he said.
Oh, no, that was a false report. We'll look at what happens. I think it's a terrible thing when ballots can be collected after an election. I think it's a terrible thing when people or states are allowed to tabulate ballots for a long period of time after the election is over, because it can only lead to one thing, and that's very bad. You know what that thing is. I think it's a very dangerous, terrible thing. And I think it's terrible when we can't know the results of an election the night of the election in a modern-day age of computer. I think it's a terrible thing. And I happen to think it was a terrible decision for our country made by the Supreme Court.
The 2020 U.S. presidential polls have witnessed the highest ever early voting in history. Over 60 million mail-in ballots have been cast that could take days or even weeks to be counted in some states, which would mean a winner might not be declared in the hours after the polls close on Tuesday night. Donald Trump has been repeatedly saying that the long-standing tradition of mail-in votes is rife with fraud, claims that he has never substantiated with evidence. So what might happen if the president contests the results by questioning the validity? Donald Trump is clear in his mind, it seems. The route could be legal. The president has said that he would not hesitate in taking the legal route. Though Trump has also denied a report that said that he told confidants that he would declare victory on Tuesday night if it looks like he is ahead, even if the Electoral College outcome is unclear.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. So get your friends, get your family, get your neighbors, get your workers and co-workers, and get the hell out to vote, because if I don't get Iowa.
Joining us on the broadcast this minute is former Indian ambassador to the United Nations, Saeed Akbaruddin, for more. Thanks very much, sir, for speaking with us and sharing your time. Your assessment of the claims that have been made by Donald Trump, not once, not twice, but repeatedly casting aspersions on the electoral process in itself, in an incumbent leader raising question marks like these. We have seen such claims being made in the Indian electoral process as well, but not by an incumbent leader.
So first of all, we need to understand that the U.S. electoral process is very distinct from the Indian one.
Yes.
In the Indian one, there is one chief election commission which handles all elections. In the U.S., there are 50 statewide elections. So there are differences between one state and another in terms of when the polling is held, how it is held, when the counting is started, when it ends, etc., etc. So obviously, there are 50 elections which are on simultaneously rather than one as in India. So there are possibilities of divergence in such situations. This is not the first time that there has been this divergence. Last time in 2016, the elections were announced very late into the night. In 2000, we all know the election process dragged on for days after the voting was finished. in difficult circumstances, there are bound to be differences. And what we are seeing now are differences being played out much more publicly than they were in the past. But it's not new. And we should understand that the US is a very mature democracy. It will handle these processes and differences in its own way. It may not be clean. It may be a bit messy, but allow it to play itself out.
Absolutely. Record levels of early voting, do you think that's a sign in itself at all, as many experts have already declared it to be one?
So the last time they were up, by my understanding, about 136.5 million votes cast in 2016. This was about 57% of the electorate. This time, already more than 95 million have cast their votes prior to the election. It is speculated that the numbers would exceed more than 160 million, which would be about 62.5% of the electorate, which is a high. The last time we had this sort of interest and voting was in the 1960s. Obviously, it still waits. We need to wait and see whether this early voting is purely voters voting in advance, or these are additional votes. It's most likely that they will be additional votes, but we need to wait and see. By all accounts, the trend seems to indicate that the interest in this election, notwithstanding the pandemic, or perhaps because of the pandemic, is reaching levels which we haven't seen in the past.
What, to your mind, is the role that the Trump administration's handling of the COVID-19 crisis will specifically play in ascertaining the outcome of this election?
So it depends on how you perceive the election. If you perceive it as a matter of issues and contrasting approach to issues, then certainly handling the pandemic will be a major issue, along with other issues like the economy, like climate change, like energy. But it will be on top of all these, like foreign trade, like racism, social inequality. You can work out several issues. On the other hand, there are some people who feel that this is a one-point election. It's a referendum on President Trump and his outsized personality. So you can make your choice on each of these. There are differences of approaches.
Very interesting, and we will hopefully know over the next few hours which way this battle is headed. We're going to leave it there for the moment. Syed Akbaruddin, appreciate very much for sharing those perspectives.